Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. And hello, everybody. So glad to have you once here again. I feel like this is our big playground here. Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, playing with the spiritual rock stars and allowing ourselves to, tune in to the multidimensional and the practical and everything. We get into a lot of different things here. So I'm grateful today. We're going to really get into the multidimensional, into the oneness, into the all of it, talking with this wonderful person today that I'm with, Rebecca Dawson. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Grateful to have you on, and you're definitely a part of the team of bringing in, the frequency of the new humanity. It's so interesting, the terms we use too. We're all listening, right? We're like, new humanity coming, we're all listening, like, getting the same, like even beyond, like, what, hearing each other, like, it just comes in, and so then it's just like that sense of, we're tuning into truth. We know what's going on. And you wrote this amazing book, The Agreement, we're going to be talking about today. And I think that's cool. You've been channeling for, way longer than I have, much longer than I have. And you've channeled, a lot of information from what you call the masters, and we're going to get into that information. So people, if you love channeled information, what's really going on, Rebecca is really going to give it to us, so to speak, in a good way. All right. So Rebecca, before we dive into it, I just want to go ahead and make sure I share a little bit about you. Rebecca Dawson is an international channeler, speaker, and author based in Perth, Australia, who has been in practice for more than 25 years. After facilitating over 2,000 private consultations, she's done a few. Rebecca's focus in the last 10 years has been on the research and understanding of the shifts that are occurring for Earth and humanity. An ability to acutely observe the human energy field has led to an interest in the mapping and documenting of the changes occurring in the human energy field and understanding how these changes impact upon humanity capacity, functionality, and experience of life. Many hours of clinical observation, hundreds of accompanying channel documents are revealing the synchronicity and pattern of change that is sweeping across humanity and the planet itself. Rebecca is now devoted to bringing this information into accessibility so that humanity can start to have a conscious understanding of what is happening, why it is happening, and what can be created from this emerging capacity. With the assistance of her team of masters, Rebecca facilitates workshops, events around the world that allow more understanding to occur and more information to emerge. But after 25 years of relaying this information to humanity, there is renewed urgency. Oh my God, I felt the same thing. So much so right now, according to the masters. Humanity is in the midst of making a massive consciousness shift. And I think for a lot of people after this last year, the light leader, light worker people listening in, and man, it's getting so obvious now that is becoming more evident daily, right? Yeah, a shift that will have us living and experiencing life from that place of totality, oneness, not from duality, and that's separation that has marked our current reality. And I gotta say, I agree. And her new book, The Agreement, has been written to help us ease into that place of highly elevated conscious awareness and prepare us to undertake this shift. So it's a roadmap for embracing life from this new level of cosmic mind. I love that term. Okay, Rebecca, so again, great to have you here. You're bright and early there, right? It's like 6 a.m. You're saying, it's great. I love 6 a.m. I mean, that's I love people that love the morning.
I love my morning time, and you'll probably hear a few birds coming out in the background, I imagine, throughout this, but they're coming to join us.
That's nice. We don't have to add in special effects then. So, all right, we have them already. The effects are already there. So tell us about yourself and what led you to really getting into all this stuff, channeling and bringing in the new humanity together with the masters and what. Tell us how you got into all this stuff.
Well, I don't think anyone ever really intends to be a channeler,
Yeah.
at least
Right,
not in
right.
my experience. For me, it happened quite young. I was always able to see energy fields and see into the body, and I had all sorts of experiences when I was younger. And my parents I was very lucky. My parents were quite accommodating and understanding of that. I was actually raised as a Catholic, but once I started speaking about these things, my mum, who was very understanding, got me involved in some meditation classes and things like that. So that by the time I was 9, I was sitting in groups with adults, learning about these things that I was experiencing. So I was very fortunate. But channeling for me wasn't really part of my plan. I had just left school and I was studying architecture at university, and it spontaneously happened for me one day. So it was a full-blown voice channel experience that lasted for about an hour. And from that point, it really took me a good 10 years, I would say, of traveling and looking for meaning with that. Being okay with not having a teacher, because that was a great challenge for me, not having a mentor or a teacher along the way. I think firstly, my age was an issue. And also, I think back then too, because, this is quite a while ago now, this is the mid 90s, early to mid 90s. There was still that really strong structure of belief where you really have to earn your way there. And if you haven't, paid your dues and gone through all your initiations, you've actually got no right to have a voice, or indeed to trust that internal wisdom that's coming out from you. And in that's been the big experience for me with channeling, actually, is understanding that it's not so much receiving information from somewhere beyond you, which would require you to reach that level of consciousness. It's more diving in within you into cosmic mind and bringing it out. So that, for me, that fundamental shift in understanding allowed me to really sit in my sovereignty with what I do as a channeler, and to completely trust anything that emerges from that space.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good topic to kick things off, because I mean, this is where a lot of the information you're getting is coming from, right? I mean, is this coming from the channeling? So let's talk about it. I mean, I do voice channeling, and done that for a pretty long time. That I didn't have the kind of experiences you had as a kid, other than, well, I kind of did. I mean, some of us all kind of have, that are kind of, those intuitive sorts of people, but not quite the way you described. But I wanted to ask you, because when I first got into channeling, I was sharing with people, and maybe you experienced some of this, and some of our listeners need to hear this. There definitely were people that had their thoughts about what I was doing. Well, isn't it just a part of your own psyche? I mean, you're just another part of yourself. And I'm like, yeah, everything's a part of ourselves. So it's the oneness, right? So that's part of it. And then I have someone else, was listening to one of my recordings back then, and I have a recording, back in the late 2000s when I was doing this. It's like I have a recording, and the people are listening. Like, it was like a big deal at the time. It's kind of a big deal still. And like, I'm really listening. Someone's listening when it's somebody I knew. And he says, well, it sounds an awful lot like you, Daniel. And I'm like, okay, like, you're not trying to apply anything, are you? And it's like, it's pretty interesting, because probably still part of my little mind still wonders about it sometimes. I'm like, okay, is this actually real? And with all this nagging doubts. So I think that is a nagging doubt for so many people that either are getting into channeling, either through writing or through voice or what have you. How do I know this stuff's real? Where is it really coming from? Where's the proof, so to speak? And so I was wondering if you could address that, because I mean, our people are into this stuff, but maybe even doing it, but to lay their own like doubts about what comes through for them for channeling, their intuition, everything. So what can you share with people that'll help them maybe trust a little bit more?
Yeah, look, I think it's such a great question, because I think this is of course, something you and I have been through, and there's no one really to guide you with it when you go through it yourself. So I'm very happy to talk about that experience. So for me, again, the fundamental shift was away from thinking of myself as an antenna, and any station, any vibration could tune into me and speak through me, which indeed was my experience in the beginning. I didn't feel that I had a lot of control, so to speak, or that I could choose when it would happen or when it wouldn't happen. And so there was always that sense of, can I rely on this? How do I know what I'm going to get? And especially the sense of responsibility that you have when you're imparting wisdom to people and they're really coming to you in times of crisis or really with a heavy heart. So you want to be really clear that what you are sharing with them or imparting to them is in their absolute best interest. So those were the big questions. So again, for me, once I started to look away from a very dualistic way of thinking about channeling, and I realized that ourselves and our energy fields and indeed our physical bodies are doorways to the cosmos, not containers for our souls, but doorways. What I realized is that I could completely trust that doorway because nothing that wasn't of resonance to this energy field could even be accessed through it. Mm-hmm. So the first trust had to come from myself, my human self, my physical self, and how I was energetically. And then there was a whole array or a whole library or a whole interdimensional plethora of streams of consciousness, whether that be through the masters or through history or through whoever needed to be expressed or whichever source of information needed to be expressed for the person sitting in front of me. Because my real strong sense of safety in that was nothing that is denser than me, nothing that is a vibration lower than me can exist within this space. So it always has to be resonant or it can't happen. It can't sustain itself. And so really that understanding to begin with was my safety. And it was such an important sense of safety because ultimately as humans, and this is what we're moving into now in 2020, 2021, 2022, we have to really learn to trust ourselves and what we feel and what comes out of us. And it's so important. I think channeling and what you and I have been through, Daniel, is really setting the pace for where we're moving to as a humanity, where there's nobody to tell you whether or not you're correct. You've just really got to believe what's coming out of you.
Right, exactly. So well put. I mean, one of the things I've taught people as far as this sort of thing goes is I taught, hundreds or really thousands of people, maybe even through to do what I call energy scanning. We're going to do a quick one at the end today, but tuning into people and, seeing what's there. And that's a huge trust process for people. Most people that sign up for my well, I don't know if most, but a number of them would sign up. They'd be like, I don't believe I'll be able to do this thing that you do, but I'll give it a whirl. And they always could do it. All I needed is to just someone to basically give them the confidence they could do it. I mean, I gave them tools, and it is a really cool thing I share with them, but how to do it and ground yourself and everything. But it's like they already have the ability. It's already there. It's already turned on. It's like and I love like what you said too, that people think, well, you gotta get there, and then it's gonna come in, and and all that sort of thing, and when I go to channel, it's like many times I'll do a vocal channel. For me, it's probably a bit different than you at least, but like I'll do a vocal channel I don't need it, but like I just like to use it to center myself. And then I feel it settle into my core, into my body. It's in my body. It's where I'm accessing, right? So it's like, then it's just like, we're here, we're ready, and then it just comes out it's just so natural too. Once you're there, it's just so automatic. I'm not a deep trance channeler. It's not like I don't know anything about what I'm saying. I'm not that channeler. I'm aware, but yeah, if you ask me later what I said, I might not really, remember totally a lot, but I'm aware in the moment, sort of what's coming through. So, but yeah, that trust, and then realizing we're not trying to get somewhere, it's already here. I think that's so important what you said there.
Yeah, and I love the way you said, sort of coming into the body. For me, it's always been a sense of really dropping into the energy, not reaching for it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
do have friends who are, I've got one friend in particular who's a very, very accomplished astral traveler and remote viewer, and she's studied, she's been out to Monroe Institute, and she's very, very accomplished at it. And her methodology there is really rising that vibration,
Yeah.
really raising the vibration, and that works brilliantly for her and what she does.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my experience has been completely opposite. It's like a dropping. It's like a dropping of identity, a dropping of mind. And the masters always talk about descension rather than ascension. Bringing heaven to earth is the descension back into our bodies and their true capacities, so we can really begin to switch consciousness on in a much more full way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, I was just talking about this in my membership group that I run, and I think it was in the membership somewhere, one of my groups, but or something. But like, I just remember talking about this, and I talk about it a lot. But I said, everybody says, I want to ascend. I want to ascend. It's like this idea of ascending, going up, leaving this plane and being done finally once and for all. There's no more incarnating for me and all that stuff. I'm like, well, but the path is to embrace everything here, to love everything here, to be fully descended. It's a descension process. That's where ascension is happening. So I think it's actually hilarious that it works that way. It's about descending, and everybody's trying to ascend. Like, I'm trying to get there. All the seekers have been trying to get there, and it's here already. It's just a matter of embracing it and letting it come in deeper. It's how I look at it. So
absolutely, being fully present. And that's really based on this old concept that we have, that we probably don't even realize that we have, that the body contains the soul, or it contains us in some way. And immediately we start to think, well, we're trapped here, and the game is to get out of it. And even in terms of how I used to do meditation practices, or how I was first taught when I was really young, was you would disregard the body and you would try to move beyond it. And yet everything that I've been experiencing and learning from the masters, and indeed teaching in the last 10 years, 15 years, is that rather than trying to get out of the body or away from physicality, to actually go deep within it, because the body is actually a portal to multidimensionality. And as long as we're trying to move away from it or transcend it, we're actually missing the opportunity to experience multidimensionality. It's quite extraordinary, that discovery, because you realize that everything that you've been looking for, you have. You just have to turn your attention inwards.
Right. I mean, you can focus on this idea of leaving the body and going to higher planes of energy, and you could be like, man, it's like going to Hawaii. Man, I had a great trip. It's so great. I'd love to go to Hawaii every day. And yet you're here. You're always here wherever you go, whether you're in Hawaii or somewhere. You're always here, and right here is where it's all at. So the idea, like, well, we went somewhere else. Well, I mean, partly that's in a way it's a distortion. That's not really completely true. It's all here. It's all right here. It's not true. So it's like we have to wake up. Part of the waking up process right now, that I'm sure you talk about it in the book. I haven't read the whole book, but it's about realizing that all of us, especially with the light work, we're talking light leaders, light worker type of people here. We have to realize we need to be willing to be here. So, when I do everybody was like trying to jump out of their body. You need to be here. And I think that's one of the big things we need to wake up to. I mean, so anyway, so anything you want to say on that, but I do want to get into some of the specifics in the book. But I'm wondering, in your channelings, are you specifically hearing that humanity needs to embrace being here in the body, being here on earth? Does that come through in your channeling as well?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is we first started bringing through information about the shift into 5D back in 2009, and terms like new human, new humanity. And at that time, I really couldn't find any other channelings or anyone else that was really speaking about this in this way. So it was quite radical in terms of the information that I felt was coming out. And that was a period I went through where I was like, well, how do, really? Because this is beyond what I knew,
Right.
you know, with all of my studies and my understanding. So that time for me was the big leap of faith, because I realized that there was wisdom starting to come out that I had no understanding or reference for. And it's actually been like that ever since. So every time I do a seminar or a live stream series, it is a leap of faith with the content. I never know what's going to come, and it's always beyond my own personal comprehension, which is great because it's always challenging me to let go of what I think I know.
Yeah.
So the challenge to actually be here was a reversal from what we had always understood the game was. That the game was to get out of here. That it's time, you know, the only way to really be free is to leave, and the only way to evolve is to leave. And yeah, it's really about a reclaiming at this time. And humans, I think, are so powerful. When we begin to understand what we were created for, we can really start to embody it. It's just that we've had this understanding about what we are and what we're about that isn't part of our natural design. And I think once we, you know, the masters talk a lot about the mechanics of dimensional reality and fabric and how it works and how it moves differently to different rules of change and creation in different dimensional realities. But the whole idea of the third dimensional reality, it's like a fabric, and when it's being saturated with repetitive experience, cycle after cycle after cycle of the same themes, it starts to really stretch, and holes start to begin to appear in that dimensional fabric. And what's really interesting to me is that I've only recently realized that the holes that start to appear in our lives, I used to think that they're cracks that appear in things that don't work for us anymore, or the structures on the planet are starting to break down as we're seeing now, and that's our chance to slip through into something new. But what I hadn't fully appreciated till quite recently is that our willingness to be conscious while we're here physically, they're the holes that are being created in the 3D reality, dare I say simulated reality, just to be a little provocative.
Yeah.
And so the more fully embodied and conscious you are, you're actually creating a hole in that experience. And the more holes that begin to show up in this simulated reality, the more light that comes streaming through, the more the collective human consciousness has an opportunity to actually pass through that bit of fabric, because it's become so stretched now. And then we move into something completely different. And that's what we're actually on the cusp of right now.
Yeah, I feel it, and totally. And yeah, it is you talk about the urgency, and I think so many people, again, it's kind of like so obvious, I think, so for many people right now on so many levels. If you're not even spiritually, like, things are urgent, this planet needs help now. You know, so many people see the urgency now. Whereas a few years ago, probably a lot of people didn't see nearly as much urgency. 5, 10 years ago, let's say. We'll be fine. We'll get there. You know, that sort of thing concerned people, but like, I mean, in mass, like, we didn't have the level of, like, wow, this is really big. But yeah, a couple of years ago, especially, I was told, like, you know, this decade, so to speak, was going to be really intense and really huge, and that that it was really important for the guardians of the consciousness, as they gave it to me. We do our best, to help humanity to work through this time, this time we're moving through, and otherwise, we'll be fine either way. One way or another, we're always fine. But it's like, we could really alleviate a lot of the unnecessary suffering that would happen, and death, and lots of things that can happen if things don't go as smoothly as they could. We can allow for that. And so, I mean, I totally get that. And then, just your book title, like, really speaks, I think, to a lot of people, because if you're a light leader or a light worker and you hear, yeah, the book is called The Agreement. Oh shit, yeah, I did agree, didn't I? Like, they get it. The light workers get it when they hear the title. I did agree to something. Okay, let me remember now. What did I say I was going to do? So tell us more about your book title and what's in the book. Let's get specifically into what's in the book and why you call it The Agreement, and we'll go into it from there.
So the agreement, I think, to me, because the title came last after the book, and it's a very comprehensive book. I would call it a comprehensive manual, really, which is really about how the mechanics of reality and creation work, where we're moving to. That's all available for us now. So it's like if you were driving a manual car and you move to an automatic car, how would you drive that differently? How does it work differently? And so that's what we're doing with this book. And it goes through the 5 different pillars of experience. So we've got the physical body, how that's different, emotions, how they operate differently for a different reason, thought, and that's a really interesting chapter about how thought sits at the end of the creative process, not at the beginning, which is a complete reversal to what we've known. Belief, how belief is constructed in the new reality, and relationships. And that's a really important one, because the nature of how we relate to each other is different. The whole premise of what relationships are for is completely different in this new earth reality. So the agreement, the title, The Agreement, the masters were very adamant about it. They didn't want an image on the cover. It's just the agreement. It's on emerald green. It's in gold, and that's it. It's like, really? That's it? Because our book covers are normally a little bit more interesting. But they were very, very clear. It's just the title. And the agreement really speaks to the mechanics for creation in our new experience, which is 5D and beyond. So in 3D, we've known cause and effect. We've known process. We've known electrical transference of energy, giving and receiving, contractual arrangements, all of that. Once we move into this new earth reality, there's no longer that tension between cause and effect. And what we mean by that is it's no longer like pushing a ball up a hill where you have to put energy into it. You donate energy into that ball, the ball moves. But then you have to keep donating energy into it to get it to move. So it's the transference of energy, which is how we've always experienced life here on Earth, or at least the last 300,000 years. So when we talk about the agreement, we start to create not through cause and effect or the transference and donation and sacrifice of energy. We actually do it through resonance or agreement. And quantum physics has been talking about this for a little while. And some people, of course, have been talking about this in terms of manifesting. But agreement has to do with amplification with creation, not donation of energy to cause change. So when we move into agreement, however you're resonating, being in your fully conscious self, you begin to experience agreement with that in your world around you. And so however you're experiencing life, life shows up to show you more of yourself. So instead of life being a challenge of trial and error, so that we can go through this process of friction to refine and learn more and become more aware, it's now a evolution that's based on how do I experience more of who I am. So it's a very rapid expansion of consciousness. It's like a sun going out in all directions. Now, if you've got a sun sitting here and suddenly there's another sun that shows up because you're in agreement, you've just got another experience of yourself. There's more light, more opportunities show up, more pathways. And so this principle for creation based on resonance means that things begin to become explorative. It's delightful. Look what I'm discovering here. But one of the most important aspects of moving into creation through agreement is that we don't have an idea about what we want to experience before we experience it. So when we're in cause and effect and 3D creation, we have an idea about what we want. We go through a sequence of steps of donation of energy to create that movement. And then we arrive at a certain place. When we move into fifth dimensional reality and beyond, we tend to have a feeling state, or we just want to experience more of life, more of who we are, and we don't know what that is yet. And so life begins to become created, and that's when we step into the new.
Yeah.
So that's how I'd encapsulate it.
That's so awesome. And we just had someone, on recently that was talking about this in their own way. And, and I think there's so many teachers, right? They're all saying the same sort of thing, but saying it in different ways, right? So different ways of getting the message out there. And yeah, it's, going like the idea of you're being in the quantum field and, whatever, all the terms we use, we use these words, but it's, what I've always said ultimately is life is really about listening, right? It's just simply, I mean, that's a big one. It's a foundational thing. We're really listening. And as we're listening, then everything's unfolding just perfectly. But when we're not listening, we feel heavy, we get stressed out, things aren't going my way, and that's so because you're not listening, you don't realize it. You're just not listening. That's all. If you're listening, then things work out. Even if your mind doesn't think they're working out, they're working out. You're really listening. So, it's kind of how I see it too. And then, yeah, it's so true. It's I call it energy flow mastery. Like, where you get to where you just have barely an awareness of something, and literally, like, there's a whole stream of a packet of energy and information that knows exactly what to do with any scenario, and aligns everything up perfectly for you. It could be anything. It could be the way you experience your next date night. It could be that 5 people on the street hand you a $20 bill like out of the blue, and you didn't really think about having that experience, but somehow you were aware that maybe something was coming, just kind of a feeling like, oh yeah. And it's sort of this, not thought, but sort of like an energetic acceptance of the packet. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And and it's really subtle, when you pay attention, you notice it. It's just like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, we'll have that. Yeah, sure. It's just like, and like you said, so the thought is last. It's like, oh yeah. And it's real simple then too. It's not like, okay, yes, I'll have that. Oh my God, like I will, yes, we're having it. Put the energy into it, put it in the earth. Like, I still talk about those things too, but it's like, but this is a higher order of things where I don't want to call it higher order. It's just different, I suppose, but it's so much more, it's evolved. I want to say it's more evolved in my perspective. So
I would say it's a deeper experience of cosmic life, where everything just is in agreement with itself, because consciousness is in agreement with itself. Source energy is. But we live in a world of duality where everything's about friction and electrical transference of energy. So we're always getting that disagreement. Right. And that's where the labor is. That's where the effort is. So, it's really a shift from electrical transference of energy to magnetic energy, which is self-sustaining and doesn't really need anything beyond itself. So, I think we're going to see that a lot in the next 20 years permeate into our external reality as well, in terms of innovations and technologies, for sure. But I think, in light of what you just said, which I feel, thank you so much, was so beautifully encapsulated, that example you just gave. For me, there's 2 very, very simple mechanisms that lets us shift into that way of living and into that way of manifesting and creating new things. The first thing is being willing to not know. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's what you were saying. I don't know what's next. I wonder what the possibility in this is. Putting an open-ended question into every situation without having to know the answer immediately releases us from experience that's already occurred and releases us into fifth dimensional reality and beyond. I wonder what else is possible. So just asking the questions like a switch, a mechanism. What is this? What can it be? I don't know. It's quite incredible, really. And the other very simple thing is spontaneous action. Because when we're in spontaneity, I'm going to drive this way instead of this way today to the supermarket. I'm going to hold my coffee with this hand instead of this hand. Very small, simple things. Disarms us from habitual, thought-driven experience, where we get the same experiences day after day after day, generation after generation, life after life. So spontaneity and being willing to not know and go on that adventure is a very quick, efficient mechanism to shift us into the new. And if there's one thing I wish people would take with them after today's conversation, it's that, because it's so simple.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Why is it that, I mean, not that I don't experience it so, but like, why is it that we are so, we get attached to this, oh, I got to know, and I got to figure it out, and I got to make something happen, like those survival instincts and, you know, all the pain body stuff and all that. You know, there's all the usual explanations, but I'm wondering if you have an elevated, perspective or something on it, because
sure,
obviously it's for a purpose. There's a reason why we've embraced that way of being for, whatever thousands of years it's been, but there's a reason why we experience it, and there's a reason why we're shifting now. So I'd love for you to share about that.
What a great question. Thank you for asking that. I think it's an important one to ask. Well, first of all, what we were designed for as humans is to be creators, not replicators and reproducers. We're all completely different. We all have completely different blueprints. We all have completely different DNA profiles, different irises, different fingerprints. And it's the same with all of life on Earth. Earth was designed to be a galactic Garden of Eden. So with incredible diversity for creation, where we're meant to be doing different things all the time and creating different things all the time. But at a certain point in the human life experience, something happened, I won't go into that today, that led us into the belief that our sense of success and our way out of this reality is to perfect with repetition. Consistency and perfection with repetition is success. And yet what it does is it keeps us in the same experience over and over and over again. And we see this with our agricultural practices. Thank you to the Atlanteans for bringing that one in, where it's about consistency with crops, consistency with livestock. We teach our children to be consistent, get the same answer all the time. We want ourselves to be consistent in relationships. We want, and that's all about being predictable. And so we've become replicators and producers rather than creators. We've forgotten how to create. So really getting back to becoming creators means we have to become spontaneous again. And it's actually going to allow us to elevate and to create a new Earth reality. So I've gone into a completely different sphere here. So if you can guide me back to your question, I'll give you the second. They're asking me to ask you to reiterate.
Yeah, I mean, no, this is good. It's like, I mean, I have my own, perspectives and whatnot, but on why it is that, why have we created this? We've created it, right? I mean, or it has created it, the oneness, or whatever you want to call it. It's predictable, right? People are tuned in and predict all these phases of consciousness. So it's not like, oh, wow, we had no idea this would happen. Or all of a sudden humanity decided at one moment, like, it's like it's already in motion. It's already all happening, right? We all, we know that, right? All realities have already happened. We're just experiencing this particular gig, right? So it's like for some reason, like it was, I would say part of it is just it was fun. It was fun to be repetitious for a while. We are infinite beings. Why not? But I'm just curious on the perspective of that because it's like why in other words why is it that we were on this treadmill all this time and all of a sudden now is the time? Maybe there's not an explanation, but I was just wondering if you had a perspective on that, like, okay, I mean, why all of a sudden now is the time for us to wake up to it? Or is it like I know, so I mean, certainly there's been beings and societies and cultures and whatnot on Earth that have lived in such ways already. I mean, it's not like it's never happened before; it has. But as a collective, in this time and space for it happening is pretty amazing, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
And I think that, when a reality is encapsulated as the Earth reality has been with this cyclical motion of experience, consciousness gets to experience itself in that compressed state. What happens when consciousness is encapsulated? What does it do? How does it behave? And what does it do? It seeks to perfect. And so we've seen ourselves as humans, as soon as we're born into this encapsulated reality, that's the Earth reality. We know that we have a sense of isolation within the universe, within Earth. That's the hallmark of our experience here. We see ourselves as a problem to be solved. So even in the game of enlightenment, we start off, we need to solve the problem of ourselves. We need to self-improve. We need to save the earth. We need to do anything other than what we are and how we are naturally born into this world. And again, it puts us in this whole cycle, which eventually leads us back to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going out and coming back in. And that's what the Earth reality's been. And I think that we've had such a saturated experience for that now. The way we view it, if we were out in the cosmos, through the eyes of the masters and beyond, looking at the Earth reality, it's like it's become so compressed and so contained that now it just has to expand its awareness outwards so that the true multidimensional nature of humanity can begin to become aware of itself again. So it's really just, the expansion of consciousness. If you think about it, an encapsulated holographic reality, and then you get more and more and more consciousness filling up that reality. I mean, look what's happened to the population on our planet. There's so many beings here at this time. Is that a problem? I think it's a problem if you're trying to maintain an encapsulated reality. But if the foresight here is to actually break free and actually expand the Earth consciousness and humanity's consciousness beyond itself, then the more conscious beings you've got in there, the more points of light you've got in there, the holographic reality cannot contain that amount of energy. It can't contain that amount of consciousness. It's not designed to contain that much. And so what's going to happen? It's inevitable that we're going to break free from the encapsulation of what we believe we are, what we believe our world is. And at that time, that's when belief structures start collapsing. That's when our structures that have kept everything in place start collapsing. And I think we're all beginning to see and experience that. And one of the most personal experiences we have in that is that our sense of identity begins to collapse as well. We don't know who we are anymore or what we're doing. What was the point of any of this? Should I even be here? All of these things. I thought I had a mission, but now this, all of that. So the collapse of identity is intrinsic to that end of encapsulation.
Yeah. It's very fascinating. So the book, the agreement, helps outline this transition and stepping into what you're talking about is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Yeah, I think really it's knowing that if you are here at this time, really be here, really exist. Know that you exist regardless of any reference point you have, whatever identity you think you have, whatever's going on in the world. if you know that you exist, it is your existence and your consciousness that's articulating this shift into a new experience. So if you're going to be here, really be here.
The funny thing is, everybody wants to know stuff. It's like, but that's the exact thing that limits our awareness. It's funny, you think it's the opposite. I'm reading all these books, I'm becoming so aware. I know so many things because I've read so many books. But I find, like, sometimes, in some ways, in certain regards, the less books and the less striving to know things, and the more you're just allowing yourself to just not know things and be open and aware, the more awareness you're going to have, the more that, those things don't necessarily resonate as much anymore. I
Of
like.
course, yeah. And as soon as you're willing to say, well, I don't know, you actually open yourself up to the possibility for something else to emerge. It's an invitation for more, to say, I don't know. I don't know what my life is for. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know anything anymore, which is where I think a lot of us are. And I mean, I have days like that for sure. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time.
Right. Exactly. I mean, isn't that an awakened place to be? Because it's like, again, someone I just interviewed, we both resonated with, we don't know anything. We don't know anything. I mean, then you only can expand your awareness from that space, though. That's where people can surrender the idea that they don't really know, that they don't really control things, but that you can let go of all that. You can just, like, hey, I don't know anything. I'm not controlling anything. I'm just open. If anything, it is a pointer.
I
Like, I'm
exist.
just open. Right.
I exist. That's the only thing I know, is
Yeah.
I exist. And what that does is it unhooks you from all of the belief systems and the structures that's kept you in what you've been in. Being willing to say, I don't know. I mean, you feel it. It's a relief. Just now, I watched your face when you did that, and your whole face just lit up. Your whole field just lit up with joy when you said, well, I don't know. I mean, that's it. That's the essence of the cosmos. Our obsession with trying to understand the cosmos is the great unknown. And we have a wonderful opportunity to lean back into that and birth something new.
See, that's where we keep getting hooked. Like they say, you get hooked like a fish, right? But you get hooked. It's like, because eventually somebody comes around and says, listen, I know stuff about whatever it is. It could be any issue, right? Environmentalism, racism, the political thing, or, whatever, about money. Well, money should be, and we got a system, and it should be like this. It should be like that. Should. And then people, because they want to know stuff and they want to get on the right side, they're like, okay, where do I sign up? And then keep doing it. It's like, what if you just start being like, I don't know. I love you. I love what you're up to, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I want to go with you. Maybe I don't. I don't know. But and then your heart will tell you, what direction, what path is right for you. Just how I look at it. But not be so attached. Always be open. That whatever if you have to have some sort of belief structure. Almost, it's probably not true. We almost have to have some sort of, because, when people say, well, what do you believe about this? You could say you don't know, but some part of you has some belief structure, right? So it's like, but it's like, right? So it's an interesting
you can have
thing.
reference. I think you can go, well, I don't know. I have a reference for this is how it was, and that maybe it could be this way, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Rebecca, this is amazing, and I think people should check out your book and check out your workshops, because you can go deeper. I think people probably find this sort of discussion really cool. So check out her book, The Agreement, and I imagine they can get it, anywhere, right? Amazon is the usual place.
Amazon, through my website, where you can access everything else, and I do a lot of channelings on YouTube as well. So there's lots of current wisdom and information on there for people too.
Oh, great. Well, we'll get your links for that and put them in the show notes. And if they want to go to your website, where would they go for that?
It's my name, RebeccaDawson.net. Super easy.
Okay, great. So you can learn more about Rebecca there. And Rebecca, we're at the time of the show where I just take a minute or two to tune into you and just see, kind of get a whatever wants to come through to share with you today. Some loving, beautiful, awesome thing. So are you ready to receive?
I certainly am. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Well, I mean, so I just share what comes through. So they're showing you as a daydreamer. I see you yawning. Do you yawn when you channel sometimes, or I see you yawning? I don't know where the yawning's coming from, but I just see like you just like, oh, when you're relaxing, like these daydreams come in, and it's just like, woo, all these realities you're kind of aware of. Oh yeah. You know, you're just aware, and they're just showing me that within you, and it's just fun to notice. So I just share that with you real quick. They're showing me your head cut off. So, you know, this is kind of, you know, some of it's just typical. Oh, of course, you know, persecutions, past lives. Many of us have had our heads cut off. Let me take a look at why this is showing us. Probably more to it. Yeah. So now you're coming into fruition of the actualization of that gift, right? Like, yeah, it's not about my head, you know. That's why you got your head chopped off. So for those of you that know you got your head chopped, remember, they're doing you a favor. Try to send a strong signal. It's not in your head. That's not what it's about. So let's see what else is coming through. I see something like a burning energy with the hands, like your hands got burnt. This is a past life thing. Okay, what is it saying? Again, it's trying to show you this idea of possessing, like, I've got it, or like you're like past life, especially a little bit, maybe in this life at times, like, I'm gonna eat the knowledge, I'm gonna get the wisdom, like they're showing, like it's just hilarious to you now, this, but they're showing that. Let's see if there's any like more like right now things that might be supportive to you real quick. Saying a light and era of the gold, you know, bringing in this golden age of humanity. Yeah, that you're to work with light leaders. There's circles of like heart-centered circles that you're creating. They feel like they're outside in nature, and yeah, and I keep seeing mountains. I feel like I saw the mountains outside your window, even like I just keep seeing mountains. So mountains are important, an important element to your work, I want to say even. So let's see. Yeah. So these retreats, these in-person retreats seem to be important. Let's see. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, it feels like there's some sort of rituals that help people to awaken. They take them through. Um, yeah. So yeah. So you'll take people into these places, and you're just you just easily can open up new portals of experience for people through what you naturally be guided to do at these retreats. So you may know all these things already, but I just share what comes through. It maybe needs sometimes we need to hear things more than once too. So I just share what comes through. So Rebecca, what comes up for you when I share all that?
Thank you. I appreciate that. It must be time for me to book another retreat. I haven't been able to do one in the last year. I don't think
Right. Well, maybe that's the signal, you know, maybe that's what's part of what's cooking. So anyway, thanks for receiving the scanning and the whatever I was doing, channeling. I just call it scanning, but yeah. Well, one last thing, saying something about with your mom. I see some grief in the throat, And I just hear forgiveness. So I know that you've done a ton of work, but it's just saying something about this forgiveness is important too right now. And it's going to help deepen you even more in your heart space, even more. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So lots of love, Rebecca. And if you, everybody, if you'd like to check me out as well, you can go to yoursacredpurpose.com, and there is an opportunity to get an energy scan consultation. And then you can definitely get a free gift from me, Meditate and Make Money, getting you in a deeper connection, just listening, see what's there, what wants to come through, you know, what's there for you. Just getting in the frequency alone creates, like we're talking about. Meditation definitely does that. And it does help you with some little bit of a mental inquiry to process. So check it out, yoursacredpurpose.com. And Rebecca, we're going to give you the last words here. Any last things you want to share with the audience?
Sure. I think what's really important right now is, if you don't know what to believe anymore, just believe yourself, because that's our return to our true state as creators. No one has more authority for what's right for you than you. And I think that's a very important message right now.
Hallelujah. That is true. We got to stand with our divine sovereignty. You got to reclaim that or claim that. And I so resonate with that. So vital, so important. That's one of the biggest ones. It's one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one. So thank you so much again, Rebecca. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show today. And lots of love to you and all your work. And to our audience, lots of love to you and all your work and all what you're up to. And keep on tuning in. We'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time, everyone.
You're listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.